An important part of our being Jews is being part of a Jewish community. Norman Israel Godfrey was the first executive director of the modern JCC in Portland. It was from its founding a secular Jewish institution, an alternative to the synagogue, a place where Jews could socialize and unify. The Orthodox, the Conservative, the Reformed Jews were all welcomed. Godfrey also understood the importance of creating community among Jewish children. His vision led to the creation of Center Day Camp, dedicated in his honor posthumously. The idea of a shared institution for Jews of different movements was new in 1938 when Norman Godfrey spoke at the dedication dinner for the new JCC. Consecrated to the noble purpose of perpetuating Jewish life upon the highest possible plane, Godfrey said, in consonance with the traditions of the founding fathers of our great democracy, the Jewish Community Center enters now upon its course of service devoted to the enrichment of the individual personality and the enhancement of American Jewry. Norman Godfrey died too soon in 1947, but the Jewish Community Center lives on in a brand new building built by the United Jewish Community he helped forge. For that, we induct Norman Israel Godfrey into the Maine Jewish Hall of Fame.
My daughter said, "Mother, write down what you're going to say, otherwise this is going to turn into a pajama party." So, hello, my maniacs. It's so good to be home. I feel totally blessed and so grateful to briefly share a bit about my dad. I feel so happy as he passed away. This is amazing. 74 years ago, in 1947, here in Portland, when my sisters and I were 3, 6, and 9. Dad was 37 years old when God called him. Daddy was hired to come to Maine after being the phys ed director of the Jewish Center in Stamford, Connecticut, where I now live. He had just received his master's degree from New York University in social work, and it was there in Stamford that he met and married my mom, the secretary of the JCC. After being hired as the first director of the new Jewish Community Center here in Portland, thus began an amazing love affair with Maine and the center. Daddy was a workaholic, so I've been told by many, and so loved his work, you name the organization, Daddy belonged. I was only four when this beautiful, almost 6-foot tough man was in and out of Maine General Hospital, but memories of him are vivid. I remember my answering the front door to find a bunch of small little children asking if my dad could come out and play, and seeing my father several times in the middle of Dartmouth Street, stopping traffic and playing with a bunch of kids from the center. I was told that after Shabbat services on Saturdays, he would take kids to a near park to read about the Jewish holidays. I remember once listening to the radio during a bad snowstorm when there went out a plea for blood for my dad, and was told that many walked in the storm, Jew and Gentile, to give blood. My mother slept in his hospital room many nights, and as he got up from his bed, no matter how weak he was, to pray from his talit and tefillin. His last words with Mom at his side were the Shema Yisrael. He had accomplished so much in his brief 37 years here on earth. I wish briefly to share with you that a very long line of cars from Maine to Connecticut, and with a huge police escort, followed my father's cars as he was being buried in Connecticut. My mother said there were several hundred people there. Mom later shared a touching moment at his funeral, as she said that a gentleman came up to her. I first have to say that the center gave my father a very expensive, beautiful, heavy winter coat. And my father came home every night without the coat. My mother said, "Where is it?" "Oh, I forgot it, I don't need it." And a gentleman came up to her at the funerals that my mother had never met and said, "I came to the center to ask for warm clothing, and your husband gave me his coat and a new suit." That night that he gave the coat, he came home with gym things. And my mother said, "Norman, where is your suit? Where are your clothes?" And he said, "I was working with the kids. I doing gym with them." He gave his clothes away. That's an example of who my father was. As I write this, I was thinking of how proud his 8 grandchildren and now 11 great-grandchildren would be of my dad. And I know that he's watching over us. In closing, I felt it was very special for me to share a story about a remarkable man, Philip Lown, who asked Dad to come to see a piece of property in Oakland, Maine, where Mr. Lown decided to build a camp for children, a 2-month Orthodox camp. And my father said to Mr. Lown, "This is beautiful, it's going to be wonderful, do it." Mr. Lown built the camp, and I have to say, sent my sisters and I to the camp for 16 years without paying a penny. I mean, this was remarkable. That's how much my dad was loved. But I want to share with you something that I thought about. When I was at the camp, I started at the age of 7 at the camp. There was a little girl there at Camp Lown. She was my age, and she couldn't talk, couldn't say a word, but she could sing. So we sang together. She taught me a lot of songs, and I found out that she was adopted from Germany, from a couple here in America, as she had seen her parents killed by the Nazis. And that's why she couldn't speak, but she could sing. And I want to share with you now a song that I learned at camp, and it's called Be'arvot HaNegev. It's about a soldier who sees a woman alone and weeping, and she has just found her son who has been killed in war. He goes up to her, takes her hand, and says, "If you will it, I would like to be your son." And so I felt, and I want to dedicate this to my dad and to that lovely girl that taught me so much. She actually taught me that no matter what happens to us in life, no matter how good, how bad, how tough life is, we must always continue to sing. And so, Adam.
Be'arvot HaNegev mitnotzetz hatar. Be'arvot HaNegev ish magin nafal. Lo Shem HaNegev